Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Ellen Parries-Tarver. Now we're going to be discussing her amazing memoir, Gold Nuggets, available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. But if you want to gather everything that she has in store, and I mean everything, because listen, Ellen has a lot in store. Check out her personal site, goldnugget.store. I promise I wasn't trying to make a pun there. But that's just the site. So you're going to head on over there. You're going to gather more information on her, information on this amazing book. There's merchandise for sale as well. Gold Nuggets is also available in Spanish in paperback version. People, I'm telling you, head on over to goldnuggets.store because you're going to find everything that you need. And I quickly want to point out the fact that Ellen was brought to our network by one of the best publishing firms in the business, Citi of Books. So for my writers out there who have gone through their process and now you need some assistance moving that masterpiece you just developed, well, look no further than Citi of Books, people, because they're one of the best movers in the business. Head on over to cityofbooks.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Ellen here on the line. You know, people, it's interesting how grief has a way of rewriting our stories. But I want to ask a question, man, because it's interesting. As I was doing research and preparation for the interview, I acknowledge that, right? I've gone through grief myself in losing very close family members. And I understand how that can shift and how that can change you. But what happens when faith rewrites grief? And I think it's an interesting question. It is definitely one to ponder and explore, because in Gold Nuggets, you see, Ellen is going to take us on a harrowing yet luminous journey through unbearable loss and the sacred nuggets of love that outlast even death. You know, when I was preparing for the interview, it really hit close to home. Now, you have all heard me mention this before in the past, so I'm going to reiterate something that has been mentioned. But I am a father, a very young father. I have 2 young children at the moment, and I can only imagine the pain and the void that you sustain when you lose a child. Now, I've lost 2 brothers very close to me when we were growing up, and I saw the havoc that wreaked on my mother especially. To see her bury 2 of her children and the devastation that that caused, it is almost a scarred image in my brain, because the amount of pain that she sustained because of that was something that I recognize now more so than ever before, being a parent, how horrendous that is. Well, today we're going to sit down with an author as she unravels how light finds its way through the cracks of shattered hearts, and why her story isn't just about survival, but about sacred transformation. You know, puns and little notions can be made about Gold Nuggets, and how I interpret that is, you know, the valuable times, the valuable, you know, I guess you look at memories, and that is a form of currency, you know, because, man, It to some people, and especially to me, again, that's the most valuable form of currency one can possess. So when we look at the name of her book, Gold Nuggets, it carries a lot of nuance, and there is so much there through the memories that she shared with her son, but all of the lessons, the valuable lessons that she's learned along the way. Trust me when I tell you, we are going to scratch the surface here today. There's going to be a lot left that you're going to need to pick up the book and find out. But make sure you have your notebooks ready, and maybe even a tissue or 2, because we're going to get down to it. And at the end of the day, Ellen is the expert of it all. So sit back and strap in. Ellen, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, and let me just say that I am humbled and honored to be with you today and to share my story.
Well, listen, Ellen, the honor is all ours. I really do mean it. What you've done is powerful, brave, courageous. I mean, listen, you are the embodiment of a person of distinction, and it is our pleasure to be able to showcase you and your book through our network. So thank you for joining us. Let's jump right in, okay? Your book, Gold Nuggets, it's a memoir, so it's going to talk about your background anyway. So let's encompass it all. Tell us more about this fantastic book.
This book came about after my son had passed away. A friend of mine said shortly after that I should write a book. And I looked at him and I said, write a book? I don't have anything to say. But about 12 years into the situation, the thought came across again, you should write a book. And I've just pushed it off. And then probably 12 years later, I met a friend for lunch, and she did not know me prior to my son's passing. And she asked a few questions, and I agreed. And after speaking with her, she looked at me and she said, you really should write a book. And at that moment, I said, maybe I should. And that's how it came about.
There you have it. You know, I want to go into advice, and I feel like, listen, this entire interview is going to be filled with a lot of gems, or, pun intended, a lot of gold nuggets here, right? You know, you mention in the book how you thought you'd never return from that dark place, from that despair that you found yourself in. Well, talk to us. What was that first glimmer, no matter how small it may have been, that made you believe healing was even possible?
Well, the reason that I named the book Gold Nugget is because after my son had passed away, I began to reflect back on things that were said, things that happened, dreams I had, and I realized that the Lord He had blessed me with little nuggets along the way. And when I realized that, that gave me hope because He was there from the very beginning, even before the process started.
You know, Ellen, I think that brings up a point that I want to touch up on here. And listen, I love asking questions like this to clients because I feel like it goes into something that is not often talked about or is not talked about enough. Going through such a depressing and just heartbreaking situation, a lot of times, especially people within that faith community, listen, man, we look up and we ask, why? Why us? And I think that there's a lot of anger and resentment that is placed and directed towards God. And I love asking that question because I think that that's human. I think that that is normal. I think that that's understandable and even acceptable. So I want to ask you, were there moments that you felt abandoned or angry with God, and how did you reconcile that with your faith?
That is an absolutely wonderful question. But I would have to say to you, I did not get angry with God. And one of the reasons that I did not, in the book I talk about when I received the telephone call that Clayton, which is my son, was laying on the basketball court floor and having a seizure. And I went to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, they put me in a little room. And the nurse came in, and she said to me that it doesn't look well. And I told her, okay, you go ahead and work on him, but I'm going to stay in this room. And let me tell you, that is where the rubber met the road. And what I mean by that, there were 3 things that happened in that room. The first thing that happened was that I began to bargain with God. Well, let me go back. I began to pray first because that's what I was taught to do, to pray. And then the second time that the nurse came out, I sent her back again without going. And this time, I began to bargain with God. I began to try to think of every scripture that I could use. Father, you said that if we obey our parent, that you will give us long life. Any scripture that I could come up with. Then the third time that she came out and I sent her back, that's when I decided that I was going to trust God no matter what. That meant that, Lord, you had given me this child. He wasn't mine from the beginning. He belonged to you. But if you allow him to live, I will do this. However, if you take him, I would do that. And I settled in that room that day that it is well with my soul, whatever you decide to do. And I never questioned him.
Ellen, that is incredible. And again, something that I think a lot of people grapple with. I know I did, and I was very young when I lost my first brother, and still fairly young when I lost my second, but I definitely remember distinctly having those moments and going through that process. And I know that that is something that is so relatable to a lot of individuals. And that is really showing the strength of you and your unwavering faith in such a dire circumstance to be able to stay steadfast within it. And I think that is so commendable and a wonderful reason why you need to pick up copies of this amazing book. Gold Nuggets is available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, goldnuggets.store. It's available in Spanish. This is going to move mountains for you in your life because there is so much wisdom to be gained here. My follow-up question that I want to go into now, Ellen, I've remembered talking to previous authors that have written memoirs, and they talk to me about the experience that they had while writing it. Well, there's a large spectrum on where those emotions go when you're now revisiting these past memories and these dark moments in your life. Talk to us about that writing process, and if writing this book could have even been cathartic at times or therapeutic when you were revisiting and processing some of these emotions.
Again, I have to say that I believe that God is the author of the book. He just used me to write it. And as I began to write my story with my son, I was grateful. I was thankful because it reminded me of how much my father was with me through the entire process. Did it bring tears? Of course it did. But the Bible said that we don't weep like those that have no hope. And secondly, I'm a firm believer that God is not the father of the dead, but of the living. I look at it as Clayton is not dead. He is alive. He's living in a different dimension, and that I will see him again. This is not the end for me. This is not the end for us. It's just a time that I have to get through in order to make it to the other side.
Right. Listen, perception is everything, and I think you have a magnificent one that is truly beneficial and really, in my opinion, as I'm listening to you speak, is the pinnacle for all of this. It really is what has propped you up and made a huge difference in this recovery process, and it's a beautiful thing. As we begin closing out here, Ellen, the book is called Gold Nuggets, so I can't go without any puns. If there's one gold nugget you want your readers to take from your book upon conclusion, what would that be?
Oh, my, what a wonderful question. I'm so glad that you asked that question of me. I just want to share how much God truly loved me. So, of course, my son had went out on a date 2 days before his passing. And when he came home from his date, he was laying on the floor like teenagers do, young adults do. I come down the steps and I go into the kitchen, and he's right near the kitchen. And I promise you, Mr. Cole, I was not listening or even trying to listen to my son's conversation. But as I'm in the kitchen getting my glass of water, I heard him say, I didn't hear anything else, but I heard him say, when I get married, I want a woman just like my mama, but she the bomb. I laughed to myself, and I said to myself, oh, that child, And I went back up steps, and I didn't think anything else of it. 2 days later, he was gone. I thank God. That was a nugget, because you know why? Because the Lord allowed me to hear my son speak of me, to tell me how he felt about me. I didn't have to ask anybody. Nobody had to tell me. I heard it from his own mouth that he adored me. He loved me. I didn't have to ask anybody. I didn't have to do any of that. But that was the grace of God. That was a nugget that God gave me that I could stand and I could live and I can listen to and I can ponder on, something that I could go through. Every time I think about it, it doesn't bring sorrow. You know what it brings? Praise. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the nugget. And that's just one.
Ellen, I love what you're talking about here. And people understand that even if you haven't experienced the same loss that she is discussing, the message here that I'm taking is how there are silver linings in all situations, right? It comes down to perception and how you view a particular circumstance. Now, please understand, I know it's a lot easier said than done. In that moment, man, you might not be looking for those silver linings. They're there. Those lessons are waiting for you, and they're there to be gained when you are ready. Everyone has their process, and it's up to you to go through yours. But this book and this conversation has taught me so much. Through unimaginable loss, Ellen has unearthed a profound truth that even in the darkest moments, faith can be the compass that leads us back to love. See, her story, Gold Nuggets, doesn't just mend broken hearts, man. It reminds us that grief and grace can walk hand in hand. This is such a profound revelation that I know so many of you are going to be able to take and run to the bank. Listen, man, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's goldnugget.store. You got to head on over there and pick up your copies. If this hasn't moved you, pinch yourself, you're clearly asleep, you got to wake up, and this is going to pass you by. Head on over there, pick up your copies today. While you're at it, get it as a gift for someone else to add to their shelf as well, because this is a magnificent resource that we are all going to be able to build from. And we have Ellen to thank for all of it, man. Head on over there, and you know what to do. Ellen, this has been a true pleasure. Honestly, I really do mean it. Your book and the words of wisdom that you've been able to showcase here today were profound. So thank you for being with us through People of Distinction.
One last thing I'd like to say. Anybody that's listening, just know you are not alone. Thank you, Mr. Cole.